Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Yes, generally, if something has a negative connotations and have some background to it which is irreligious or anti-religion, anti-Islam in this particular case, then even if the situation changes, it is preferred to avoid such things. One should have that much love and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that even if they do not mean what they meant at the beginning, as you would find out that these, you know, god and goddesses are no longer in existence, maybe in, at least in the majority's mind, at least in the media, in the open, then it becomes a bit more sort of permissible and okay to use it. But even then, a permissible action does not mean that we should always act on those. A permissible action only means that we are allowed to do so, but leaving those actions is mostly better than doing it. So avoiding such actions is much better than committing those actions, even if they are permissible, if they had been impermissible in the past because the situation changed. So, for example, these uh, main brands, the big brands in the world today, Nike and others, which we tend to buy because we want to look cool, we want to show it off to people that we have bought it and it looks good. Whether it is good or not, that's to be seen. There may be a difference of opinion on that. But we do it only because we are much more materialistic. It is not for any other reason mainly. Because I've seen people having those Nike shoes, they still change it after a few years, even if it stays there for say 10 years. They don't, well, let's just get the new one because they've got enough money to their credit and they can use it. So it's not about they're much more comfortable, well, they are, but there are others as well. And one should have a limitation to how much they spend. One should try their best to live a simple life, a frugal life, the life which is more in keeping with the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a simple life. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given a choice to have even the Mount Uhud to be made into gold, and yet he opted to leave it the way it is. He said, rather, I would have food one day, and next day I would starve. So I show my gratitude on the day that I have the food, and the day I didn't, I will show my patience and hence get rewarded. So this is the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we should try their best to stay in that situation rather than trying to be very much materially sound, very rich. And even if they had a lot of money, which is fine, no problem, it should not find its way into their hearts. They are not living and dying for money. That is not their goal of life. Rather, this is the barakah in their money. They get a lot of money, yet they do not feel so much interested in that. So their heart should not be filled with the love for money. They may have all the luxuries available to them, but they're not keen. So these brands have actually made it their way into our hearts. And many a time when we have those, we create a culture which we've already done among our next generation, our people, our friends, our families, that this is a cool thing, this is a thing to be done. Now, the people around us would be of two categories. Either they can afford it or they won't be able to. If they could, they would follow that trend, whether they need it or not, which means that we are pushing people into this materialism and wasting their money in things that they do not need. It's called israf, extravagance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like those who spend money wastefully, those who are extravagant. So spend anything, even in the right cause, in the halal cause, which is in this case halal anyway, it is not advisable unless we need it. Now, if someone is a marathon runner, someone who does sort of professional games of some sort where he needs to be wearing very special, very expensive shoes, for him it's perfectly fine. But someone like me who never does anything that needed jogging shoes or something like that is wasteful, even if it's £20 worth. So it all depends on the individuals. But if one is going for the brands only because they want to be seen like someone wearing it and everyone else around them wearing it, he's just in that competition. That's a wrong mindset, and we should not be creating that sort of environment or a negative competition among people. Now, the second group or the second category of people would be that they cannot afford it. So, what will happen to them, you think? Obviously, they are going to feel deprived, and they would continue to talk about that, continue to think about that, would continue to save some money for that, and thereby many a time they would leave or forego their obligation. The parents are in need, the brothers are in need, the sisters are in need, and yet he is more concerned about keeping up some money for the next sale in Christmas time or during Christmas time to buy Nike shoes, a pair of that, so that he can tell all his people, all his friends, and many of them get depressed because they cannot afford it. So what are we doing? Who are we supporting it, and who are we helping? So we should be very mindful of others. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Let you increase the curry by extra water in it, and give some to your next door neighbor." And the teaching of Islam is such that if you cannot share your, say, fruits or your meat with your next door neighbor, do not dispose of at a place where they can see. So their children are starving and you are having roasted chicken today. So dispose of at a place where they can't see, in order to not make them feel deprived and thankless to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe even having complaints to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and maybe thereby leaving their faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in a way, we are not facilitating their faith, rather we are going out of our way for things that are not needed in our lives, and thereby pushing people away from the right path. So this is a negative da'wah that we are doing, and we should try our best not to fall prey to our whims and desires and causing troubles to others. May Allah give us tawfiq to understand the wisdom of Sharia.